nugs for every pipe. Hello, Wonderhussy here, hanging out in a place called Reefer City. And no, it's actually not that kind of reefer, but I have that song stuck in my head now. No, this is actually called Reefer City because I guess back in the 1930s, there was a big gold strike in that mountain back there behind me. And this South African mining company bought it and decided to build a camp to house the workers that they planned to hire to dig all that sweet gold out of the mountain for them. And so instead of building cabins, which would have been expensive and time consuming, well, there happens to be a railroad running right past here, and so they bought a bunch of refrigerated railroad cars, which if you know anything about railroads, they call them reefers for short. And so that's why this town was called Reefer City. Now, obviously, this house right here was not a refrigerated railroad car. Maybe this was like where the mine boss lived or something. This is an actual stick-built house. Unfortunately, the mine, oh gosh, I think it closed in the 1940s, and then the nearby Air Force Base used the old reefer cars as base housing for a while. But then in 1971, all of Reefer City was demolished, except for, well, I guess this little house. And since this little house is the only thing left standing, that's where I decided to come. It ain't got a front door or a front window, but it still takes me where I wanna go. Oh man, that song is gonna be stuck in my head all day long now. Thanks a lot, Reefer City. Anyway, there isn't really that much to look at here in what used to be Reefer City. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting that there's a heart-shaped hole in the wall. Don't know what that means. And yeah, you know, it would be kind of fun to poke around and look at, you know, these cool old kitchen tiles and just imagine what the lives of the people who lived in this lonely little shack were like. But that's actually not why I came to this part of the country. Okay, I'm out in the desert. I'm on my way back from the San Francisco Bay Area back to where I live in Death Valley. And so I'm out in a part of the desert kind of between Bakersfield and Barstow, aka where all the magic happens. Specifically, today I'm in the little desert town of Mojave, California. And let me tell you guys something. I've been to a lot of weird desert towns in my day. This place is my favorite. Now, if you don't know anything about the town of Mojave, well, you might be able to figure out a few clues from this sign they have posted by the side of the highway leading into town. You can see at the bottom there is the silhouette of one of the 20 mule teams. Okay, you remember the 20 mule teams that used to haul borax out of Death Valley? I just made a video all about that in the town of Boron, which is just right down the highway a few miles. Well, the terminus of the 20 mule team happened to be right here because this is where the railroad is. Right here in Mojave. So the 20 mule teams used to haul the borax out of Death Valley down here to Mojave, where the rail line is, and then they would load it up into rail cars and take it south, I guess, to Los Angeles. But you might be able to tell by looking at this sign that the 20 mule team history isn't the only interesting thing about Mojave. Okay, first of all, the O is big and round like a planet with a bunch of stars in it, and there's a jet or an airplane or a rocket or something shooting out of it. And then there's also, down in the corner, this little EDF Renewables patch kind of tacked on. Well, believe it or not, those are 3 other really interesting things that are going on here in the town of Mojave. Let's go take a look. Okay, driving through this kind of busted looking little desert town, well, you'd probably have no idea anything interesting was going on here. You know, it's a lot of busted out storefronts, empty buildings, little old houses. But then again, they do have this amazing mural dedicated to the history of their city, which I feel like I gotta get out for a second, take a closer look at. Wow, look at that, that's pretty cool. Shows the beautiful desert, planes flying all around, you know, beautiful desert wildflowers, train coming through right alongside the old mule train, some kind of spacecraft flying overhead, and some kind of military helicopter. You know, say what you will about Mojave, they're really into celebrating their history. Look at this, right across the street from that mural, there's the Mojave Chamber of Commerce historic Mojave caboose display. Y'all ever heard the tale of Mojave Maria with the finest caboose in history? Well, it's not that kind of caboose. It's an old railroad caboose that looks like it was actually made into a little apartment or something. And you might be able to see on the side there, there's a drawing of the Voyager. It says birthplace of the Voyager. First unfueled non-stop flight around the world. December 14th through 23rd, 1986. Almost 25,000 miles. That's right, the Voyager was some kind of ultra lightweight experimental aircraft that was able to circumnavigate the entire globe without stopping to refuel. And the Voyager launched right here in Mojave. Now you might be wondering, well, gee, Wonderhussy, where are you gonna launch an experimental aircraft in a place like this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Where else would you launch an experimental aircraft? I mean, of course there's a spaceport in Mojave. Don't be ridiculous. In fact, it's right down there at the end of the road, and we'll go take a look at it in a minute. But first, look what they have parked out front here. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The things you find in the desert. Okay, I don't know much about aircraft, so I couldn't tell you what size jet this is, but it's pretty big. I mean, for reference, I'll come stand here next to the front landing gear. I can stand up without bumping my head on the underbelly of this jet, and I'm 5'3". Look at these giant jet engines. I don't know why they put mesh over them, because I feel like they're not like that when a plane is operational. Maybe they had to protect them from aircraft buffs coming out here and stealing parts. You know how airplane people are. But yeah, wow, you can just walk around under this giant jet airplane and see what all this stuff looks like up close and personal for yourself. And sure, if you work at an airport or a baggage handler or something, I think at least one viewer of this channel is a baggage handler, well, you probably see this stuff up close all the time. It's not that big of a deal. But for someone like me, I think it's pretty cool. I didn't realize these tires are bigger than the tires on my car. You know, I thought I had some big, beefy tires. Well, not anything like this. And then look at the top there. It says NASA on the tail fin. I'm not sure what this plane would have had to do with NASA. Oh look, there's a sign. I bet you anything this will tell us exactly what kind of jet that is. Oh yeah, it's a Convair CV-990 NASA Landing Systems Research Aircraft. I guess this jet was used to test space shuttle landing gear and braking systems. It says it was modified with a main landing gear and tire from the space shuttle, which was installed right there between the CV-990's main landing gear. It's not on there anymore though. It says the borrowed shuttle landing gear was reinstalled at the Enterprise, which remains on museum display. Well, this is a museum. This is an open air museum, because it's not just that NASA jet. There's two more aircraft over here. Look at this. Here's a F-4 Phantom II. I guess it created sonic booms over Mojave and could reach speeds of Mach 2.2. It says it was the last fighter to be flown by pilots attaining ace status in the 20th century. Ooh, look at that. Then it says in 1986 it was converted to a drone by Tracor Flight Systems. But the Air Force loaned this aircraft to the Mojave Air and Spaceport for display back in 1988. And so that's why it's sitting out here today. Wow, look at this. A lot smaller and sleeker than that jumbo jet. And then there's one more aircraft over here. This is a, gosh, I don't even know how you say that. Saab, like the car company, or SAAB TF-35XD Draken Supersonic Jet Trainer on loan from the National Test Pilot School. This aircraft was used to train future test pilots and flight test engineers from around the world here at Mojave from 1994 to 2009. That's right. Here at the Mojave Spaceport, not only do they launch all kinds of crazy experimental aircraft like that Voyager that flew all the way around the world without having to stop and refuel once, but it's also home of the National Test Pilot Program. Like I said, I don't know much about aircraft or aviation at all, but apparently, yeah, right here at the Mojave Spaceport, not only do they have this test pilot school and they launch all kinds of experimental aircraft, well, they also launched the first private space flight back in 2004, which I think was called Spaceship One, and it was funded by Paul Allen, the other Microsoft guy, not Bill Gates. Paul Allen, side note, seemed like a really cool guy. Not to say that Bill Gates isn't a cool guy too, but you know, he didn't fund any private space flights yet. I mean, it seems like with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, everybody's doing it, so he'll probably be next. And speaking of cool guys, Richard Branson also based his Virgin Galactic space program from this spaceport. In fact, I think it is still based here. Let's get in the car and drive a little bit closer to the spaceport and take a look. Okay, I've actually already been here to the Mojave Spaceport and made a video. Gosh, years ago I went on a flight. A friend of mine took my sister and me flying all over around for the day around Death Valley, and we stopped for lunch here at the Voyager restaurant. That's right, there's a little cafe over there where you can have, I think they serve breakfast and lunch, and it was pretty good food. You can check that video out if you're interested. But today I'm more interested in going across the street here to check out this rocket. That's right, across from the airport there's this little park where there's some kind of weird experimental rocket on display. And again, I know nothing about aircraft, spacecraft, technology in general, so you're gonna have to bear with me and my bumbling layperson's explanations of all this stuff. But apparently this is something called a rotary rocket. I guess a rotary rocket is some kind of like almost like a helicopter rocket hybrid. Oh man, look at that. I don't know if you can see because the sun, it's backlit, but that's the little cockpit. And you can even see inside it where the guy sat. Again, my limited layperson's understanding is it was sort of like a rocket that would take off like a helicopter with propellers and go straight up. And then once it got into thin enough air to where the helicopter blades didn't work anymore, it would become jet powered. And so I guess that's why it's called a rotary rocket, because it had rotors like a helicopter. Again, I'm not exactly sure, but golly, this thing is ginormous. You know what I mean? Talk about a phallic symbol. Boy, you'd definitely be the big man on campus with this bad boy parked in your garage. Speaking of garage, what do you guys suppose is over in that? Well, there's actually something super cool in that, and we'll go look at it in a minute. But before I leave this rotary rocket, look at this. I guess that was its, what do you call that? Not a VIN number on an airplane. Whatever, it's airplane identification number. It says experimental. And then it's got the American flag and the California flag. California, in addition to being many other things, has always, I guess, been a leader in the aerospace industry. And well, that's part of why the spaceport is out here in Mojave. I mean, we are just right down the road from Edwards Air Force Base, where they're doing all kinds of other testing, I guess. Oh, look at that too. There's this big rock right next to this road. This is what I think is interesting about the desert. There's this cutting edge, or well, maybe cutting edge rotary rocket right next to a rock with a bunch of holes bored in it by one of those old-timey mining drills. You know, what do they call those? Jackleg drills that the miners used to use. Because there's a lot of mining activity in this area, obviously. We were just at Reefer City, where they had a big gold mine, where there was, you know, the borax mines, where all the mules were lugging all that borax down here. All kinds of stuff has been going on here ever since the white man discovered it. Anyway, let's see what's inside this mystery garage next to the rotary rocket. Sorry about the glare. I'll have to push my camera right up against the window to show you. But this is Spaceship One. This is the private spacecraft that was partially funded by Paul Allen. You can see his name's right there on the wing. I guess that's the wing. And then you can also see on the tail back here, it says Virgin Galactic. That's Richard Branson's private space exploration company. Like I said, everybody's doing it. But I feel like he was one of the first, you know, before Elon Musk jumped on the bandwagon. Anyway, I guess if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can look through these windows and gaze upon the, well, here's a little, oh, here's a picture of the pilot, I guess. Brian Binney, pilot. It says Mojave Transportation Museum celebrates the 20th anniversary of the first powered flight of Spaceship One, which was back on December 17th, 2003. Wow, cool. So over 20 years ago now. Oh, look down here. It says Voyager aircraft. This 1/5 scale flying model of Voyager was built by Glenn Dunlap of Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, where is it? Did there used to be a model of the Voyager in here too and they took it out? Well, that's a bummer. I would have liked to see a replica of the Voyager. Come to find out, I guess this is just a replica of Spaceship One. At least according to the sign. Oh, look, they got a quote from Werner von Braun, the Nazi scientist. "Do not tell me that man doesn't belong out there. Man belongs wherever he wants to go, and he'll do plenty well when he gets there." Gotta love Werner von Braun. Yeah, apparently there was a replica of the Voyager, which I would have really liked to have seen. I guess the original Voyager is in the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., but yeah, it says Voyager took off from Edwards Air Force Base, which, wait a minute, I thought they said it took off here at the Mojave Spaceport. Maybe they were just based here at the Mojave Spaceport. That's where they did all their test flights and research. But it officially took off, apparently, from Edwards Air Force Base at 8:01 a.m., December 14th, 1986, and flew west for 26,366 statute miles. Then on December 23rd, which is 9 days, 3 minutes, and 44 seconds later, it landed back at Edwards again. And it was the first successful circumnavigation of the planet non-stop and non-refueled. Pretty dang cool. Okay, now what's over here? Well, could this be a kissing booth? Is this where I finally get to kiss Richard Branson? Oh no, it's some kind of informational video. I guess talking about the National Test Pilot Program. Look at these old-time aviators. I'm sure it's an absolutely fascinating movie fit to rival anything on the History Channel. But I ain't got time to be sitting around watching movies. Oh no, look at this. Michael T. Alsbury, aka Scat 23. Says he was a scaled composites test pilot lost during the powered test flight of Spaceship Two. Oh no, I guess Spaceship One launched without a problem, but Spaceship Two apparently ran into some trouble, and this poor guy's life was lost. It says it happened on October 31st, 2014. Wow, golly, I don't remember hearing about that. But then again, I don't remember hearing about a lot of things. Okay, let's get back in the car and go check out some more weird stuff. Okay, check this out. This is something I've been wanting to check out for years. I've driven past it dozens of times. Unfortunately, the federal government won't let you get in there and poke around up close. I guess because it is technically on the grounds of the Mojave Spaceport, so it is an active airfield. But what I'm talking about is this airplane boneyard. Okay, it's a boneyard, a junkyard, where they leave old commercial airliners that I guess aren't in service anymore. It's frustrating that I can't get closer. Maybe if I climb on top of my car, we can get a better view. Okay, I'm up on the roof of the car, and now we have an unobstructed view, I'll zoom in, of this 747 graveyard. Isn't that wild? Look at that. All these bright, shiny, new-looking commercial jets just parked out here in the desert, right outside the town of Mojave. I told you this is one of my, if not my favorite weird desert towns. So I guess these aren't technically all decommissioned jets. I was reading last night that apparently sometimes airlines will just store jets that they're not using. Like during the pandemic when nobody was able to travel, they weren't using all the jetliners, and so I guess they would just park them out in places like this in the desert because it's cheap. They can land them easily because it's like really hard packed ground, and it's a very arid climate, so it's not like they're gonna get rusty sitting out here. Boy, can you imagine that though? Like, say one of them Lufthansa jets over there that used to do the Berlin to New York run 5 times a day, but then COVID came along and now all of a sudden they weren't using them planes anymore. Well, I guess they flew out here to Mojave. I don't know if the runway at the spaceport is long enough for a big jet like that to land on, or if they did just land on, maybe there's like a hard-packed dirt landing strip out there. Anyway, landed in the desert, rolled out and parked and, you know, just sat there and waited for the pandemic to be over and for travel to start happening again. Really interesting. I mean, you can probably recognize a bunch of different airlines out there. I mean, isn't that TWA, Delta? Gosh, I don't know. This is also where they bought that junk airliner that they turned into an art car at Burning Man. If you heard about the 747 Dreamliner, these rich hippies. You know how you go to Burning Man and everybody builds these crazy cars with lights and, you know, fur and music, and they all drive around just partying on them. Well, these crazy rich hippies bought a friggin' 747 jet, and they had it transported all the way from here in Mojave up to where Burning Man is held in northern Nevada, and it was a huge undertaking. I mean, my understanding is they were able to buy the old jet for next to nothing. I think it was an old British Airways jet or something. So the plane itself had been stripped of anything useful, so it was just this hunk of fuselage and wings. And they had it, I guess, broken down into pieces and trucked all the way up to Burning Man. So that's what cost the most money, is just transporting it, because it was too wide, even disassembled. It was too wide for one traffic lane, and so they had to pay for like a escort to close down one lane the entire way up. Oh man, it was like a big controversy because they brought this. I thought it was a cool idea that buying an old 747, they were going to turn it into this, you know, mobile nightclub where they would cruise around the playa and you could get out on the wings and dance, and there's a bar in the cockpit and woo. I actually did go inside it when it was up there. The first year they got it up there, it wasn't mobile yet. It was just parked stationary, and they had all these girls in little cute stewardess outfits. You could go in and hang out. They had a DJ. I don't know. I thought it was kind of lame. And then apparently the second year when they finally did get it mobile, well, apparently it was very lame in that they wouldn't let people on it. That's like one of the big things at Burning Man. Everything is for everybody. You know, you can't just go, oh, we made this for our camp. So they wouldn't let you on unless you had a special wristband or your boobs weren't big enough or whatever the case was. Anyway, they got that 747, I think, right here at the Mojave plane boneyard. Pretty dang cool. The only bummer is you can't go in there any closer than where I am outside the fence. I mean, it'd be nice if you could, you know, go in and take a tour. You know, I'd certainly be willing to pay for something like that. And I know there are plenty of, let's just say, aviation buffs that would be willing to pay money for that. So I don't know, I feel like the town of Mojave is missing out on some revenue. But actually, randomly last night when I was researching this video, in my motel here in Mojave, that's right, I stayed the night here at the Motel 6 right by the airport, and it wasn't bad at all. I would definitely recommend it. I would stay there again. Anyway, I was doing my research, and apparently there you can't go in there and tour this thing, but there is going to be one special tour hosted by, I guess, ANA Airlines. It's Air Nippon Airways. It's a Japanese airline. And so this Japanese aircraft company is doing one tour coming up in March. So if you're an aircraft buff and you want to get a closer look at this airplane boneyard, check out, well, you can check out their website, but unfortunately it's all in Japanese. And so you know how you can do Google Translate? Well, I translated it and it basically said, you know, if you want a spot on this tour, it's going to fill up fast. You have to enter this. It's going to be like a raffle. They're going to draw who gets to go on the thing. But I couldn't figure out how to sign up for it, and I couldn't figure out even how much it would cost because it was all in yen. But yeah, that's going to happen in just over a month here. So if you seriously want to go tour this airplane boneyard, look it up. Okay, wow. As if Reefer City wasn't enough. As if the Spaceport wasn't enough. As if the airplane boneyard wasn't enough, there's still one more really fascinating thing in Mojave, and I think it's the most interesting thing of all. Okay, I might not be a railroad geek, and I might not be an aircraft geek. And I didn't even realize I was a windmill geek until last night. Oh my God. These things are amazing. Okay, unfortunately, I happened to park right beneath one of them that isn't currently moving, but I mean, all I have to do is pan over here and you can see there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, probably thousands of wind turbines here in Mojave. Okay, I guess this is called the Alta Wind Energy Center, and it's the biggest wind farm in the entire US. Okay, I guess Texas actually generates more wind power, more megawatts of wind power than California does. But the biggest single wind generating field in the country is right here in little old Mojave. Imagine that. I guess the total capacity of all these wind turbines here is 1,550 megawatts, which I'm very new to being a wind turbine geek, so forgive me. I don't quite understand or comprehend like how much that is, but I guess that's a ton of power. And I guess the reason they put it here is the mountains there, okay? On the other side of the mountains there is Bakersfield, and there's the Tehachapi Pass coming through them from the, well, basically the ocean to the desert. And so I don't really understand anything about physics either, but apparently there's something called the Venturi effect, so that as air is funneled between the mountains coming through that pass, like the low pressure air from the ocean or the high pressure air from the ocean coming to low pressure, I don't know how it works, but the air passing through these mountains apparently is impacted by something called the Venturi effect, and I guess that makes it real windy, okay? That's the TLDR. It's just real windy here. And that's why you always see these wind farms in super windy places. Like there's another one down by Palm Springs that's really big, and another one up in the Bay Area at Altamont Pass. Anyway, I just think these things are completely fascinating because of the scale. I mean, they're ginormous. I mean, I'm parked right here next to one of them, and I'm completely dwarfed. I guess each one of those blades is over 100 feet long, and the tower itself, I think these towers are somewhere around 250 feet tall, which is, well, from the base of the tower to the tip of the highest propeller, and I don't even know if that's what you call it, a propeller, but that length is higher than the Statue of Liberty. And it's super heavy. I mean, according to what I read online last night, I guess the whole thing would weigh more than 164 tons, and the tower alone weighs 70 tons. In fact, I geeked out last night and watched a video about how they build these towers, and it was absolutely fascinating. Believe it or not, these aren't even like the biggest wind turbines in the world. There's even bigger ones like off the coast of Britain. You know, that's where they put a lot of these wind farms, is out in the ocean, so that way nobody can complain about it blocking their view or making too much noise, although they're absolutely silent. I know a lot of people also get upset because I guess birds get hurt by them, but I don't know. I mean, they're moving pretty slowly. It seems like birds could relatively easily avoid that. Anyway, apparently some people have an issue with these giant wind turbines, and so that's why they put them out in the ocean. And also it's, well, real windy out on the ocean. But, you know, here in the Mojave Desert, it gets pretty dang windy too. And that's why, I guess, they decided to put this giant wind farm out here. I don't know. I think there's something kind of eerie and graceful about them because they're so quiet and they're so massive. I guess that's the thing that fascinates me the most about these things, is how big they are. Like that thing in the middle of the propellers, which is like the housing for the gears and the generator and everything, it's called a nacelle. There's your fun fact for the day. N-A-C-E-L-L-E, a nacelle. Well, that thing is the size of a semi-truck trailer. At least according to what I read online, they're supposed to be about 50 feet long. It's just hard to tell from down here, but yeah, I guess that's basically like a semi-trailer sitting at the top of this, I don't know, 200-foot high pole. Okay, even though this one up here isn't moving as fast as the other ones, which by the way, I think they can get up to like 200 miles an hour at their peak speed is what I read. I did park next to this one for a reason. And I'm assuming I'm not breaking any laws by doing this because the gate was open and didn't say do not enter. So I was just curious, and also to demonstrate the scale of these things, I wanted to show you how they get in here to work on these things. I mean, you can see there's a stairway going up to a doorway that leads inside the friggin' tower, and this one happens to be open. I mean, I can't not go at least poke my camera in there. I don't know if y'all have ever been curious what's inside one of these wind turbines. I know I certainly have. Oh my God, this is unbelievable. I mean, they didn't even lock it. Okay, well, I'm guessing this sticker probably used to say don't go in, so I won't go in. I'm just gonna poke my camera in, but look, there's all this weird electrical stuff, and then there's a ladder. Look at that. A ladder going all the way up to the very tippy top of this wind turbine into the nacelle. Really interesting electrical hum that it's making too. And then look over next to the ladder, like say you weren't in any kind of shape to be climbing up a 200-foot ladder. Well, I think that's an elevator. I think there's an elevator that you can get in. It looks like maximum 528 pounds, 2 people, and that would take you all the way up to the top of this turbine. How about that? Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and close the door. Well, I was gonna close the door, but it won't close. It's jammed open. Guys, what's going on here? All right, well, I was gonna do a good deed, but I guess I'll just leave it the way I found it. Fascinating. When I was a little kid, I mean, these things have been around for a while, and I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So every now and then we would drive over the Altamont Pass, which I guess was one of the earlier wind farms. I remember seeing them when I was a kid, and they kind of freaked me out. I was scared of them because they're so big and so quiet, and they're just constantly spinning and spinning. Something about it really freaked me out, and I guess it's the scale. Anything that's that big is kind of intimidating, especially when you're a little kid. But even as an adult, I've seen these individual propeller blades being transported on the highway. I guess most of them are made in Denmark. Okay, the Danes, any Danish people watching out there? The Danes are like pioneers in wind energy because it's a tiny little country. They don't have any, what are they gonna do? So they have like, I guess, big wind farms out in the ocean all around Denmark. And they make these propeller blades. So I guess they make them and then they ship them overseas and then they haul them on flatbed trailers. I've seen them on the highway and they're mind-boggling. I mean, they're 100 feet long. I mean, for reference, that's almost as long as that giant airplane we were looking at parked out in front of the Spaceport a minute ago. And they're trying to figure out ways to make them even bigger. Okay, I guess researchers at Sandia National Laboratory in New Mexico are currently trying to figure out a way to, I guess, decrease the stress on them so they can make propeller blades up to 650 feet long. That just boggles the mind. I mean, these are 100 feet long, like 6 times that. Anyway, I know this is kind of a weird, nerdy place to geek out and a weird place to be my favorite place in Mojave, considering there's a spaceport and an airplane boneyard and an abandoned Reefer City. But I can't help the way I am. This is my jam. Actually, just driving around the desert, checking out weird places like this is my jam. And that being said, I guess I should get back in my car and head on down the road to check out more interesting places in this vast and mysterious desert. But I sure hope you enjoyed this tour of the fascinating and quirky town of Mojave as much as I did.